Daniel Sports Central, we go for a college football game preview and prediction on a big matchup coming up here in Week 13 of this 2022 college football season. And it's going to be for the South Carolina Gamecocks and the Clemson Tigers. Huge matchup for both these teams coming up here in Week 13. You got South Carolina, who is 7-4 on the season. This team is coming off of one of the most unexpected upsets of the season. They beat Tennessee, the 5th-ranked team in the country, 63-38 last week. And that ends Tennessee's playoff hopes. And for South Carolina, it was a dominant win, and so this team coming off of that win, they're on fire heading into this Clemson matchup. And the Tigers are a tough team as well. This team is 10-1 on the season. They're the top team in the ACC, probably the favorite right now by a decent margin to win the conference. So, yeah, this is a huge one for both these teams coming up here in Week 13, a great rivalry matchup. But we go over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today. Starting with your team trends, South Carolina beat Tennessee once again 63-38. That was a shocking win there for South Carolina, especially, this team coming off of their loss to Florida. This team lost to Florida the week before, beating Tennessee 38-6, only put up 6 points in that game. And then they come out the next week, they play 5th-ranked Tennessee, and they score 63. It's just wild how things can turn just in a snap in college football, but that's a perfect example of that, that's for sure. But South Carolina is 7-4 overall. They're 4-4 in SEC play. So being 7-4, this team and coming off of that huge win, they aren't ranked in the college football playoff rankings. They're one of the first ones out in the AP poll, at least. I personally rank South Carolina like 21st in my 21st in my rankings this week, just because that win against Tennessee really shows this team's potential. It really shows their ceiling. And if they can play like that in this matchup, they've really got a chance against Clemson, even on the road. The way they played last week was almost a perfect game, and it's extremely impressive, especially on offense, to what they were able to do. But as for Clemson, they beat Miami 40-10, a nice dominant win for Clemson there. They're 10-1 on the season, 8-0 in conference play. Their one loss of the season is to Notre Dame back a few weeks ago on the road, but otherwise this team is undefeated in ACC play. And Clemson, I really haven't been terribly high on this Clemson team, and you would know that if you've watched my channel in the past few weeks. I've been pretty conservative on Clemson just because the ACC is a very weak conference this season, quite honestly. North Carolina was helping this conference be, but North Carolina then just lost to Georgia Tech. So now it's like you got really no one in that division, and in Clemson's division, you got them in Florida State. Louisville is now ranked this week at 25, but otherwise NC State's been a disappointment. Wake Forest has been a disappointment. Syracuse has just fallen apart down the stretch. So it's a messy conference, and Clemson is far and away, you could say, the best team in the conference. And Clemson, I honestly don't even know if they're that good, just because they haven't been that dominant overall. But games be on Saturday, November 26th, in Clemson, South Carolina. Tigers are the home team here, and your kickoff is noon p.m. Eastern. Spreads going Clemson by 14.5, so the Tigers are favored by about 2 touchdowns here. Over under 52, and the FPI is going Clemson as well, 88.9%. Series history, Clemson leads it 72-42. They've won 7 straight. Last time South Carolina knocked off Clemson was in 2013, so it's been quite a while. Stat comparison for this one, South Carolina is 46th in points per game. This is overall you could say, pretty average team statistically. They're not really bad in many areas, but at the same time, they're not a big standout. Their worst area is in the rush defense, 108th in the country there, as they are allowing 188 rush yards a game. You're going up against a Clemson team that is 39th in rush yards a game, which is in the top 40, so they're in a pretty good position there. But main strength is, you could say, in the passing game for South Carolina. This team has been averaging 248 pass yards a game, which is good. It's nothing too outstanding, but we especially saw Spencer Rattler. He's the Oklahoma transfer quarterback who really had high expectations going into the season, and rightfully so, considering he was such a hyped-up quarterback at Oklahoma, especially after his strong start. But he's disappointed this season, quite honestly. His stats, 2,400 yards, 14 touchdowns, over 9 picks. Other than last week, he has been just a very disappointing quarterback this year. He had the game of his life against Tennessee. That's probably the best game. I will say that is the best game he's ever played in his career between Oklahoma and South Carolina. His stats were just outstanding. 30 for 37, 438 yards, 6 touchdowns. Really doesn't get much better than that for Spencer Rattler. So you got to be extremely impressed with that, and that just shows the talent that this guy has. And he's just fallen apart a little bit the past, couple of years. And that's just being brutally honest there. He's disappointed versus how he started, and for him to really show his potential against Tennessee, we'll see if that carries on to this game, and if it does, Clemson better look out. But with the Tigers, they're 20th in points per game, 26th in points allowed. So overall, this is a strong team on both sides of the ball. They're 66th in the passage game, 39th in rush yards. And then for yards allowed, they're 30th in passing, 8th in rushing. Last season for Clemson, it was a disappointing season for them. It was the offense that was a big issue for this team. Defensively, they were good. It was just the offense that was bad. The offense is better this season for Clemson. The defense has been good as well once again, except for that Notre Dame game, you could say. Yeah, so in general, this defense has been good. Offensively, they've been better, averaging right around 35 points a game. So, this is a Clemson team that they weren't going to win a national title this season, but this team very well. I could very much see them winning the ACC, and in return, that would get you to a really good bowl game, potentially the Orange Bowl, and you'd probably end up playing Alabama. There's a good chance we see Clemson and Alabama face off in a New Year's Six bowl game outside the college football playoff this season, and that would be definitely a thrilling one to watch. Recent matchup: South Carolina beat Tennessee 63-38, lost to Florida the week before 6-38. Once again, there's that crazy turnaround there. You lose to Florida, a mediocre Gator team. Then you come around the next week, you beat 5th-ranked Tennessee, just crazy. They beat Vanderbilt the week before that Florida game, 38-27, lost to Mizzou 10-23, beat Texas A&M 30-24. So just a really inconsistent team. But as for Clemson, they beat Miami 40-10. Beat Louisville 31-16. Turns out the Cardinals are now ranked this week for the first time. They lost to Notre Dame 14-35. Beat Syracuse 27-21. 14th ranked team in the country there. That was kind of when Syracuse peaked. And then they have fallen off big time since then. And they beat Florida State the week before that 34-28. Turns out the Seminoles are one of the top-ranked teams in the ACC right now. Key points: South Carolina 7-4. This team, once again, went from 0 to 100 from week 11 to week 12. From that Florida to Tennessee game, it's very impressive what South Carolina was able to do last week. That's honestly one of the best wins of the season for any team. That's definitely a top 3 on the season here. To beat Tennessee 63-38. Tennessee going into that game, the pressure was on for the Vols because all they had left on their schedule was unranked South Carolina and Vanderbilt. And, you win both those games. Tennessee's in the college football playoff, and for them to lose to South Carolina, that's just brutal for the Vols because that just knocks them out of college football playoff contention after what has been such a great season for them. But South Carolina does not care. South Carolina, this team, Spencer Rattler, finally showed his potential. Once again, if he can play just like how he did against Tennessee, if he can continue that, I think South Carolina definitely has got a chance in this game, even though it is definitely an uphill battle going on the road here. But for Clemson, this team is more than likely going to be the future ACC champion, and they got the home field advantage. They got something to prove. This is a crucial game for both these teams. Let's get the prediction here for South Carolina and Clemson coming up here in Week 13. And I'm going to go Tigers here. 27-20 is my predicted final score. No surprise, I am taking Clemson in this one. But I am pretty comfortable saying South Carolina is going to cover the spread. I think South Carolina puts up a fight in this game, and they're going to keep it close. Honestly, though, South Carolina is a very unpredictable team. This team is extremely inconsistent. I could be wrong, and Clemson could win this game 63-0 for all we know. But Clemson, I got this being a close game, kind of a lower scoring game as well, you could say. I do have the under on the 52. I do think we see a moderate to a lower scoring matchup here, but Clemson gets the win 27-20. So I'll say 60% towards the Tigers. Once again, I think South Carolina, coming off of last week, we saw the potential that this team has. We have seen what Spencer Rattler can be and what we've known that he could be. And I think Tigers win this game 27-20, but once again, South Carolina, I expect them to put up a fight, keep this game close, and they cover the spread, which is 14.5 towards Clemson. In fact, I'm pretty confident that South Carolina covers the spread, but we'll see what happens in the end. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.